you wanted to just kind of go right into the Q&A.
Well, you've actually contacted me about a program that I present called Taking Care of People.
Mm-hmm.
And you've contacted me because several of the people that you know have been in that program. Just to give you a little bit of background, Taking Care of People has been a program I have been presenting for 20 years. 21 years. We started in 1995. A little bit of my background is I was, again, a DE team teacher in the late 1970s. And then I more or less went to an orthogonal-based upper cervical practice where I've had lots of different positions and responsibilities in the upper cervical chiropractic world. But I also was very active at Palmer College in the Alumni Association and a lot of the governing that was occurring there at Palmer. So I have those as backgrounds, but none of those have anything to do with what I'm doing in Taking Care of People. In Taking Care of People, there are three things that probably would be the information that you would like to have about this program. The first of those is 54 of my patients have become chiropractors.
Oh, wow.
The second piece of that is I have had 57 interns, associates, and preceptors. And so my practice has been a stepping point for lots of people for a number of years. And so the Taking Care of People program was actually designed out of my experience, not only in taking care of patients, but also in bringing doctors and students along in their understanding and helping them create successful practices of their own. Now, the third piece that I want to give you is that you and I were talking earlier, and I mentioned to you that in the early 1980s, what I was doing was taking care of people, but my results were so profound. I was kind of a phenomena in the Tulsa area where I was practicing at the time and still in bed for a number of years. But my results were so profound that if someone would say to me, "What do you do?" I would just say, "It's magic."
Yeah.
And I got away with that for a number of years, but it eventually occurred to me that what I needed to be able to do was communicate what I do to people in a way that they could integrate chiropractic, spinal care into their life and become lifetime patients.
Mm-hmm.
So over the next 5 years of saying to patients, "Are there any questions?" one of the things that occurred for me is the exact same questions arise in everyone's mind. So that we now not only have what those questions are going to be, and I'm going to say it in another way now. If those questions are not addressed, you're leaving a patient in the unknown.
Mm.
And in the unknown, sooner or later, they're going to leave your care. If you can keep them into knowing what it is that they're doing and how it applies to them, they are going to stay with your care. So out of those questions that arise in people's minds and how we actually work with people, we also learned that people develop through stages. And so, Baxter, I'm just going to say this to you, stage development is like there was a time that I believed in Santa Claus. Then there was a time I didn't believe in Santa Claus. And then I became Santa Claus, and now as a grandfather, I actually look like Santa Claus. So those are stage developments.
I like
and
that.
One of the things that occurs for all patients is they develop in stages.
Mm.
So we now not only know what questions are going to arise in their mind, but we know what stages they're going to develop through, and we honestly know where the questions are going to arise based on their stage of development.
Mm.
And I had most of that information available to me by the late 1980s. I did start presenting it at several of the chiropractic colleges, and then eventually in 1995, I began teaching seminars and programs to students and doctors. And so now, again, Taking Care of People, which is essentially why all of us go to chiropractic school, is a program that's in its 16th year.
Oh, wow.
21st year. So it's been around a long time. There's been a lot of updates and a few changes because every now and then something comes along that allows us to develop a better way of taking care of people. But the basic information has been real consistent since probably 1987 to 1989. Mm. In that, what we have established is what we call context, or the way to answer a question. And what we've learned is that you can't answer a question out of context and be effective. Here would be an example. If somebody comes into you as a patient and they say, Dr. Smith, how bad is it? And you say, well, it's not too bad. That really still leaves them in the unknown. But if you can say to them that spinal misalignments can be small and simple, they can be big and simple, they can be small with a complication, big with a complication, or extremely complicated. The good news is yours is about medium and simple. Now, what I just did is I answered that question in context, not just it's not too bad.
Yeah.
You hear what I just said?
Yeah.
Okay, now that takes the person out of the unknown, and it gives them a frame of reference in which the answer to that question can land.
It gives them a scale, essentially.
And so we have 11 of those contexts that we've identified that help people relate to what we do and actually choose to take care of themselves. So we've been able to create a practice model and that is based on effective patient care and people making the decision to take care of themselves by keeping their spine corrected for as long as they live based on information we give them, and so they can have those contexts for each of those stages of development. And the Taking Care of People class is basically, that's the foundation of that class. So are there any questions as a way of doing patient care? It's something a lot of chiropractors don't have patience for because they just don't want to stop and answer all those damn questions. But by having the ability to answer them in context, you can do it quickly. And what we've learned is if you answer a patient's question and you don't use the entire context, it doesn't land. So as we mentioned earlier with the distinction between patient education and patient learning, for me, if somebody learns something, they change their choices for the rest of their life. But if somebody just is educated, and college and other educational institutions are a great example, those of us that have been through a lot of years of schooling, we maybe remember 10% of what all that was. But if we do something that has the opportunity to allow us to see the world in a different way and how we relate to it, we change our behavior, and that change stays with us from then on. So the Taking Care of People class is not only about how to do that for the patients we take care of, but it's also a learning environment. And by a learning environment, what I mean by that is I'm going to have you experience everything I'm going to present to you. I'm going to do that with individual exercises, with group exercises, with video clips, and with music so that it integrates the information regardless of what your learning style is. We're going to give you the opportunity to actually practice the material so that you will be able to leave that program and go out and make a difference in other people's lives.
Yeah.
So that's the foundation for Taking Care of People as a program. And again, what I'd like to do now is just, one of my preferences is to try to be with you wherever you are rather than me trying to think I know that already. So you mentioned earlier that you might have some questions. Do you have any specific questions?
Yeah, a couple. First of all, I appreciate that you're trying to meet the students where they are. That's a very strong characteristic of a good teacher. So I guess overall, the seminar layout, or what can people expect at the seminar? Kind of a small breakdown or summarization.
I can talk to you about a lot of things about the program itself. We go through, let me mention first that there's a 100-page manual that comes with the program. Okay, so everything that is going to be presented, you're going to have something that is actually hard copy, written down, that you can take with you.
Yeah.
And I've had hundreds of people that have been through this program as a student that use that manual virtually every day for about the first 2 years of their practice life. But the way the program is broken down is, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about some fundamentals of chiropractic, and one of those would be the distinction between intervention and non-interference. Now, what we all need to recognize is that in our culture, virtually everyone lives in a world of intervention. So that if my head hurts and I take an aspirin, it's taken care of. That's intervention. Non-interference is if I had a headache, where is my headache coming from? And if I can address it there, then I can get over it. Mm. And so we're living in a cultural time where knowing that intervention is the paradigm changes how you and I must communicate to patients, because we have to give them another option.
Yeah.
And by giving them another option, it's real significant for us to realize that they're making their choices based on an intervention paradigm. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about how people learn. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to begin to review the context. And what I'm going to do with that, for example, is I'm going to put up A to P full spine x-rays, somewhere between 50 and 100 of them. And I'm going to have you create those misalignments in your own body so that you actually have an idea of not only what you're working with, but how to communicate to someone what it is that they have. And so the distinction between a bone being in or out of place, which is really hard to communicate, or the distinction between having a spine that's misaligned with certain parts of the spine that are locked up and interfering with the nerve transmissions, is a different picture, for example. So we're going to do the misaligned spine or the subluxated spine, and we're going to give you a way to exactly relate to that from your own experience, so that you'll be able to relate the patient's experience back to them. And the next thing we do is what we call the distribution of nerves. So one of them, and these are the questions that I'm going to open the program with: what is it? Do I have it? How's it affecting me? And what do I need to do to take care of it? All of us have to answer those 4 questions for patients to become good patients in lifetime and take care of themselves in what I call lifetime patient care. So in those 4 questions, we're going to start with what is it? That's that misaligned spine. Second is we're going to talk about distribution of nerves, because that is how it's going to affect the person. So by starting with the misaligned spine and the distribution of nerves, it not only covers what is it, do I have it, how's it affecting me, and then the next one is what do I need to do to take care of it. We're going to talk about office environments. We're going to talk about how to create an actual healing environment, not only based on good business principles, but also based on the idea of the founding principles of chiropractic. Remember that non-interference idea? The non-interference idea is if you honor the wisdom of the other person, then you're empowering them to listen to their own innate intelligence. So an example of that would be if I were to say to you, Baxter, your body is smarter than I am, and I'm smart enough to know it. Do you know what just happened? I empowered both of us. You follow that?
Yeah.
So there's going to be things that we're going to talk about relationships with people, communication with people, in a way that empowers them to live a healthier and a fuller life without having to, do a 2-hour office presentation or lecture to people.
Right.
Then we're going to talk about office procedures, like if you want to take care of people and you want to do impeccable patient care, we're going to go through office procedures. And that's an A to Z. That's from the very first phone call to someone that's been with us for 40 years. Then we're going to go through the patient care procedures themselves, where we're going to talk about how to answer the phone, how to greet people, how to see people. We're going to talk about patient reports. And we distinguish now a patient report from a case plan presentation. We found it was too much information for someone. So here would be a context for you, for example. The first 90 days of care is going to be initial intensive. Then up to 6 to 8 months, which is what it takes for ligaments and tendons to begin to reestablish, is going to be strengthened and stabilized. It takes a person a month to recover for a year misaligned. That's going to be maximum recovery. And then the next thing we're going to look at is wellness care. So you're going to have somebody come in, they're going to feel better, and if they stay with care long enough, they're going to live well. So even our business motto is feel good, live well. So we're going to give you ways to communicate